responsibility.
Finishing this fight.
Thank you for coming into the Lore Council. This is Cade, and I'm joined with Keith.
Greetings.
And we are here today to close out the Heisei Era of the Godzilla film franchise with Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. What's that?
Oh, nothing. I was just saying, hey, say.
Oh, Heisei indeed. No, that is the Era of Godzilla that we have been reviewing for about the past year, and we are bringing it to an end with the 1995 Godzilla vs. Destoroyah.
Yeah, and I'm definitely feeling the old sequelitis, the old franchise fatigue. It has been a journey. Seen a lot of these movies, and wow, yeah, I'm just really kind of done. I'm glad this was the last one.
Yeah, what about this particular era about Godzilla has kind of started to make you feel fatigued about watching these videos?
Yeah, each movie, like the main cast has just gotten sort of homogenous. You know, they just kind of using the same people as before, just because they're the same people, and it's kind of just like, I don't know. Like the only interesting character in like a long time that I can remember was like the guy who shoved like a whole lemon slice into his mouth.
Sure, yeah.
That's about it. Yeah, and then the one chick they've recycled throughout these whole movies is the psychic chick from Biolante.
Yep, that was her first appearance.
And
Miki Sagasa.
I've just cared about her less and less each movie. There's just nothing interesting about the characters, really. Like, you don't care about them at all, or like that they're back. You know, you're just like, oh, it's that person. You're back.
Do you feel like you care about them a little less, specifically Miki Sagasa, the psychic, because she kind of has diminishing roles in each one, where she becomes gradually
Diminishing
less
roles
and less
with
important?
diminishing returns. Yeah. Right, like I think in the last movie she was like a pilot in the ship and she kind of saved Godzilla or something, or I don't know.
So, do you think this era of Godzilla would have been better suited if they would have had her as kind of the main human character rather than a side character for a lot of the movies?
Yeah, maybe. Just having someone that me, the audience, can empathize with, so that I can. What's the word I'm looking for here? When you relate to someone I can relate to, you know.
Yeah, empathize.
Like the everyman person having to deal with this, instead of just showing the whole picture, the whole bureaucracy trying to interact with each other and do shit. It's just, it's like, here's the general guy here we got to bring in the giant flying space machine that's going to kick Godzilla's ass or whatever. Again, this is like the fourth or fifth one.
Yeah, and I could definitely agree with that. I think after watching all of these Heisei era films from Return of the Godzilla until now, we're basically at 11 years worth of movies. I think it would have been better if we had Miki Sagasa, the psychic, as a returning character, and be the main human character that we can empathize with, and because she can.
Oh, and who also has a reason to kind of empathize with Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly, because she can feel how Godzilla feels.
She's done that before, but
yeah,
she was kind of wishy-washy in the last one, I think.
Yeah, and in this one, she kind of continues that trend, unfortunately, and doesn't really do a ton.
Yep, you just had her back just to be there and say one line at the end, like the last couple times.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to, definitely don't want to bring this down. I'm just trying to be honest about how I feel about this movie, and this was not a good one, unfortunately. I would have liked it to. If you like this movie, that's cool. Me personally, after going through all these Godzilla movies, I'm kind of just like, ooh, this one, like there was some good things about it, definitely. Most of my gripes come down to the story with the humans. Everything else I thought was on point with this movie. The directing, the special effects, everything looked really good, sounded really good. All that stuff was great, but in order for me to really get into a movie like this, I need somebody to relate to in this whole crazy situation with crazy monsters and stuff,
Yeah. So outside of those couple things that you mentioned, are there any things that like really stuck out to you in this movie? I mean, obviously the special effects at this point have been just perfected with like
This was
the
definitely
mini
the
fixtures
best
and everything.
looking movie of all these films for sure. Best directed as well. Like the directing was just it just looked really good. Like you had lots of great like so the movie starts off with Godzilla's back and he's just wrecking Tokyo and it looks fantastic. There's people running away. All the shots are like capturing like Godzilla in the background with like the foreground meshed in really nicely and I was like, oh, this looks really good. This looks really cool, But then the movie kind of brings in the human characters, and it sort of just kills all the sizzle that it had from the effects and the directing.
Yeah.
But like Godzilla definitely looks freaking cool in this movie, right? He's got this like flaming heart thing going on.
Yeah, Burning Godzilla as it's been called. And what do you think of the addition of Baby Godzilla, who has now grown into a more adult-looking Godzilla?
Yeah, I mean he's he looks fine, I guess. He's from the last movie. I wasn't really sure why he was in this movie. Didn't really seem super important.
I mean, I think he's
Like it's fine, I guess. Like he was in a couple movies, I guess, but
well, he was in pretty much the last half of the Heisei. He was in
I guess it was interesting seeing him locate Godzilla and talk to him, kind of.
that was cool. I think it's also cool
It's
to
definitely
see
an improvement over the cartoon, Baby Godzilla.
well, yeah, for sure, because he's
One that looks like a team mascot.
he's kind of just grown up into being a like essentially full on Godzilla. I also think that
Oh yeah.
I also think the opening to this movie kind of just immediately establishes the tone of the movie. Godzilla emerges from the sea. He's looking orange. He's looking like he's on fire. He's just destroying stuff. After the last couple of movies where he's kind of been the good guy, and he kind of just shows up and starts destroying stuff because he's got to expel some of that nuclear heat from his tummy.
Yeah. How was it? Like, what happened to Godzilla in the last movie? Didn't he die?
No, that was Space Godzilla, where Baby
No, he
Godzilla
just walks
gets
into the ocean,
kidnapped.
right?
Yeah.
So then Godzilla just gets what? Like, why does Godzilla get red stuff in this movie on his chest?
If I remember correctly, it is essentially Godzilla's nuclear reactor is just building up steam.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, it does kind of just seem the plot of the movie is just like Godzilla destroying stuff again.
Yeah, well, kind of going back to Godzilla destroying stuff, what do you think of the stakes of humanity having to contain not only Godzilla, but the other kaiju of this movie, Destoroyah, before Godzilla kind of goes, full sicko mode and blows up the planet? It kind of immediately sets the tone.
Eh. Like, I liked the parts where the government was, like, using their, like, laser tanks to try and blow up both of them and stuff, but,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and speaking of kind of as we get into the evil kaiju of the film, what do you think of the design for the evil kaiju Destoroyah, who was created by? I think this is a perfect movie that kind of goes full circle because the original Godzilla in 1954 was destroyed by the oxygen destroyer, and this creature that fights Godzilla in this is the essentially living embodiment of it. So, what do you think of the design of the evil kaiju Destoroyah?
No, yeah, it looked really good. There's definitely really, really solid, like all the different versions of it just looked really nice. Like this movie, like, yeah, you could definitely tell this movie had a pretty decent budget, Yeah, I like the design. It looks good. I mean, not much else to say on that one.
Yeah, I think it works really well that this kind of demonic-looking creature is, the only thing that can bring down the king of monsters, like this radioactive lizard. And
Yeah, it definitely looks like they got some like puppets, like they were using puppets and stuff. It wasn't just like a guy in a suit. Like there was like extra animatronic stuff going on there.
Yeah, from what I've actually read, during post-production, I believe they actually ended up using some Destoroyah action figures for some of the shots.
Oh, weird.
And I think they did a really good job of making everything mesh. Obviously, the human story isn't great because, and I think that's fine because for this movie,
You would agree there?
Yeah, oh, I would definitely agree that the human story isn't great, but I think the biggest focus of this film is that, I mean, spoiler alert for a nearly 20-year-old, nearly 30-year-old movie, but Godzilla dies at the end of this movie, and I think this kind of comes full circle as Godzilla's movie, where Godzilla is the star of the show, and Godzilla Jr. also, fighting and, essentially getting killed, I think also kind of takes center point over the humans. And I think at this point of time, kind of ironically, you mentioned kind of franchise fatigue of Godzilla movies. This was meant to be the last Godzilla movie that would be produced in Japan for a decade, but then the 98 Godzilla ended up doing bad, so they ended up kind of reneging that and making Godzilla 2000.
Well, yeah, and so you talk about Godzilla dying at the end, and yeah, the saving grace of this movie, if it has one, is the finale, which it's pretty good. It's definitely doesn't sell itself short. Like, it feels like the proper length. It got the proper amount of fight scenes and action and stuff like that. So you don't feel cheated at the end, at least in that branch. Like, it's a good finale for sure.
Yeah, and what do you think of them having Godzilla? Obviously, the second Godzilla that we've kind of been used to from the Heisei Era, from Return of Godzilla until now. What do you think of that one kind of being melted down and destroyed by his own, essentially, nuclear reactor? Like, did that hit you at all, or did you kind of just like, meh?
Really on an emotional level, but it looked really good, like,
yeah,
and it was it felt kind of, was like, whoa, and I was like, oh no, Godzilla, he can't die, and like a little bit, I guess, yeah, but yeah, I kind of had to, like, definitely visually, it was very cathartic, like the whole thing. It was, and the music was great. They were really crescendos in that part, yeah, all the characters got to say their little dumb line that kind of ruins it, but still good.
Yeah, so essentially you think it would have been better if we would have kind of had just the score along with Godzilla melting down versus everybody being like, oh, Godzilla's dying.
How about this movie, but like Godzilla's destruction is like 10 times worth. He's like irradiating everything, and it's like destroying the planet. Make this like really up the stakes and make it like the whole world is going to be destroyed unless we kill Godzilla, kind of thing.
Well, I mean,
but like Godzilla can't help it.
I mean, that is essentially the stakes, but at the end they are able to use their tanks and stuff and coolant to cool Godzilla down so that when he does die, he doesn't destroy the whole world, because that is one of the problems that they are talking about at the beginning. If Godzilla essentially goes, nuclear, is that he'll destroy the planet.
Well, it's not communicated very well.
Did you watch the sub or dub?
The sub.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and again, that could be something you missed just watching the sub, but I think overall, I think the threat of Godzilla going nuclear is conveyed very well. And obviously the threat of Destoroyah being this towering force that towers over Godzilla, and especially Godzilla Jr., I think is very effective as well.
I guess I meant just showing the destruction a bit more.
Sure.
With Godzilla, make it a little bit more destructy,
Yeah, and I could see that, because again, this movie does kind of fall into, at the end, it ends up being Godzilla is the protector of Earth, and there are no consequences at the end of this movie.
Well, I mean, yeah, like definitely like the final battle scene. It's kind of like the final battle scene of like the last 3 or 4 movies,
Sure.
Like, just pick a giant city set, have the monsters fight on it. The military shows up to do something blows up. The end.
Yeah, and I could definitely see where you're coming from. I think it's just I think to kind of overly analyze this movie and kind of get into the themes of I definitely could kind of see how it's one man-made horror isn't necessarily better than the other. So the nuclear bomb that represents Godzilla isn't necessarily better than the hypothetical oxygen destroyer, because at the end of the day, they're both just going to destroy something. And I think at the end, it definitely kind of, you can kind of see that it's perpetuated, because Godzilla Jr. just ends up absorbing the radiation of the dying original Godzilla and becoming the next fully grown Godzilla, which is a super fun scene. It's super dramatic. It's a great way to kind of end this movie on.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, it's at the end. It's literally just, it's Godzilla Jr. is the new Godzilla.
But the Destoroyah versus Godzilla fight was definitely really cool. Like at the end, it's definitely.
Oh, yeah, it's really awesome. It's a great kaiju fight. I think that even before that, I think the Godzilla Jr. versus Destoroyah also kind of gives you that great underdog feeling of Godzilla Jr. fighting against these insurmountable odds, only for him to get dropped onto a giant stadium.
Right.
I think worked really well as well. And Destoroyah's first appearance as it's like giant demon form, essentially, I think is a really effective reveal as well.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. Not scary, but pretty creepy looking. And the cops are like shooting at him with like machine guns, and the machine guns look like real machine guns. They're not just like what movie was it where they had them fire the guns, but you don't see the muzzle flash? Is that Biolante?
I think it was either Biolante or Return of Godzilla, one of the earlier ones in the series. Yeah.
But the guns look real. Everything looks real. These really creepy like puppet looking things and stuff. Ugh. Yeah, that's all pretty cool.
What did you kind of think? What did you kind of think of the homages to the Alien franchise of having the kind of little destroyers run around as these little insect things killing people? I thought those scenes worked really well. It's
fine.
I think it also works on another level of establishing Destoroyah as kind of a threat, similar to Godzilla, where it's something of you not only have to worry of its big giant form, but also its littler forms, because Godzilla obviously embodying nuclear radiation, his just general existence inspires radiation sickness and those problems as well. I think Destoroyah also does a really good job of embodying that as well, of being something that on the big scale is also not only deadly, but on the smaller scale as well.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. It's a fine villain.
Yeah, very fine villain. Overall, what would you rate this movie compared to the other ones of this era that we've seen?
I'd give it a solid like 7 out of 10, I guess, just for the effects and directing.
Sure. Overall, I personally really love this movie. The whole drama of Godzilla as this creature that is unfortunately dying really just kind of sits with me in some way for some reason, and I think it works really well. I would personally rate this one a 8.6 out of 10. I think it's a really good movie. Yeah, I think it's a really good movie. The effects are really great. Destoroyah is a great villain. And again, I think that really the only thing bringing this one down is the human story. I think if we had a better human story, this one could definitely be like a 9 to 9.5 out of 10 movie.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, if the human story was just on the same level as the rest of the movie, then it would be really solid.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is unfortunate.
Is there anything else you would like to add to the end of this review of the Godzilla vs. Destoroyah?
We're finally done with the Heisei era, I guess. Looking forward to watching and reviewing Godzilla 1998 and then 2000.
Yeah, for sure. So, Yeah, I mean, he's kind of spoiled it, but in the future, we are going to be doing a watch-along / review of Godzilla 98, so be on the lookout for that in the future. But other than that, this has been Cade from the Lore Council, signing off.
This is Keith. I'll see y'all later.